The gavel slammed down, echoing through the military courtroom. She sat there, accused of stolen valor, her uniform stripped bare of recognition, her medals dismissed as cheap fakes bought online. The prosecution smiled with absolute certainty, ready to expose her as nothing more than a fraud. The gallery whispered eagerly, hungry for humiliation, ready to watch another pretender fall. But what nobody in that room knew was that this case was about to take a turn no one could have predicted. Because the truth wasn't buried in her testimony or hidden in her files. The truth was walking down a hallway in the White House, heading straight for this courtroom. And when those doors opened, everything, the prosecution's confidence, the evidence they'd gathered, the judge's assumptions, would be turned upside down. They thought they were about to convict a liar. Instead, they were about to discover that the highest office in the nation had been waiting years for this very moment. Before we begin, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. And if you love stories about hidden heroes and unexpected justice, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. The courtroom smelled faintly of old wood and rain. A Pacific storm battered the naval base outside, wind rattling the windows. But inside, the tribunal chamber felt suffocating. Lieutenant Elena Morris sat alone at the defense table, her hands resting calmly in her lap, though her wrists bore faint white scars that no one had bothered to notice. She wore standard Navy service khakis, but stripped of all insignia, her ribbons removed, her decorations confiscated as evidence. Across from her, Commander Blake Rivers sat confidently, already smiling like a man who'd won before the trial even started. Broad-shouldered, clean-cut, the kind of officer who never lost a case. His stack of files was arranged perfectly, full of service records meant to prove one thing: Elena Morris had never been who she claimed to be. "Another faker," someone muttered in the gallery, just loud enough for her to hear. "Pretending she saw combat. Pathetic." Elena didn't react. She'd learned long ago that silence was sharper than protest. Colonel Marcus Brennan, the presiding judge, tapped his pen against the docket and cleared his throat. "This tribunal is now in session. The case of United States versus Lieutenant Elena Morris charges: impersonating a Navy SEAL, falsifying military records, and fraudulent display of commendations, including the Silver Star." The words hung heavy in the air. Commander Rivers rose, his voice smooth and confident. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward case. The accused has been attending veteran events, claiming service in special operations, even hinting at classified missions. She has appeared in photographs wearing medals she did not earn. She has attempted to pass herself off as something she is not, a warrior. The evidence will show her service was 4 unremarkable years in logistics, nothing more." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Elena sat motionless, her eyes fixed on the grain of the table. She had expected this. She'd been warned this day would come. The first witness, a retired Marine, was sworn in and pointed directly at her. She told us she was there. Syria, 2018. She described the operation like she lived it impossible. We all know no woman has ever been part of those units. "Objection," her defense counsel muttered half-heartedly. But even he sounded like he didn't believe her case. He was young, nervous, probably assigned this defense rather than choosing it. The judge waved it off. "Overruled. Continue." Piece by piece, the prosecution built its case like bricks in a wall. Her official file was projected on the screen. Elena Morris, enlisted 2014, discharged 2018, logistics specialist, no combat deployments, no special warfare training, no commendations beyond the Navy Achievement Medal. The file looked damning. It was damning. Rivers held up a photograph of Elena standing at a veteran event, the Silver Star gleaming on her jacket. "This medal," he said triumphantly, "is a replica available online for $49. She wore it in public to gain credibility she doesn't deserve." The gallery shifted with disgust. Some shook their heads. Others whispered words like disgrace and fraud. Through it all, Elena sat perfectly still. The storm outside raged harder, thunder cracking like artillery fire. Finally, Colonel Brennan leaned forward. "Lieutenant Morris, do you have anything to say in your defense?" The room turned to her. Elena lifted her eyes, steady, controlled. She spoke only once, her voice even. "My service record speaks for itself." Laughter broke out in the gallery. Cruel, bitter laughter. Commander Rivers smirked, sensing victory was his. But then the door at the back of the courtroom opened. Not gently, decisively. Two men in dark suits entered, earpieces visible under the harsh lights. Secret Service. The murmuring stopped instantly. A third man followed them in. Older, steady, the kind of presence that silenced a room without speaking a word. Colonel Brennan rose to his feet in shock. The President of the United States had just walked into the courtroom. The heavy oak doors closed with a dull thud that seemed to reverberate through every chest in the room. For a heartbeat, no one moved. President Michael Harper walked to the front, his polished shoes echoing against the tribunal floor. His presence filled the space in a way no uniform or medal ever could. This was not a staged political entrance. This was deliberate, unannounced, and utterly disarming. "Mr. President," Colonel Brennan began, his voice cracking as he tried to recover composure. "Colonel," Harper interrupted, his tone calm but absolute. "Remain seated." The colonel obeyed without hesitation, his face pale. The entire gallery, sailors, Marines, retirees, NCIS agents, even Commander Rivers, froze where they stood. Elena did not move either, but for the first time since the proceedings began, her gaze shifted from the table to the man approaching the bench. President Harper turned, his sharp eyes falling on Commander Rivers. "This trial, explain it to me." Rivers swallowed, his earlier confidence faltering but not extinguished. "Mr. President, the accused has been parading false claims of service. She's been presenting herself as a Navy SEAL, wearing decorations she never earned, dishonoring those who did. The evidence is overwhelming." Harper listened silently, then looked back at Elena. She met his eyes without flinching. "Lieutenant Morris," he said, his voice softer now but carrying across the silent chamber. "Do you know why I'm here?" "No, sir," she replied evenly. The president reached into his coat pocket and produced a velvet-covered case, weathered but unmistakable. He set it on the judge's desk and opened it, revealing a silver star, but not just any silver star. This one carried a specific engraving, a date and a classified operational code. The gallery erupted into whispers. Brennan pounded his gavel. "Silence!" "This," Harper said, his voice firm again, "is Lieutenant Morris's medal, awarded in a secure ceremony attended only by myself, Admiral Crawford, and two operators whose names will never appear on any roster. It was presented for her actions during an operation in Syria that saved not just an intelligence officer, but 27 civilians caught in the crossfire." Gasps rippled through the room. Commander Rivers blinked, visibly struggling. "Mr. President, with all due respect, no woman has ever—" "Stop!" A single word cut sharper than any gavel. Harper stepped closer to Rivers, his presence towering. "That statement, Commander, is precisely why Lieutenant Morris's service was classified. She did not claim to be a SEAL. She never once said those words. Others made the assumption. She served in a program so sensitive that even most flag officers never knew it existed." He turned to the gallery, his voice rising with restrained force. "And now, because of arrogance and ignorance, she has been dragged into this courtroom, accused of being a fraud for telling a truth she was ordered never to reveal." Silence. The storm outside returned, rain slamming against the windows like applause no one dared to give. Elena sat still, her breathing controlled, but for the first time her hands clenched into fists on the table. Colonel Brennan leaned forward, his voice unsteady. "Mr. President, are you saying—" "These charges are dismissed," Harper said flatly. "Effective immediately. This tribunal is over." He turned back to Elena, his tone softened, private even as the entire room listened. "Lieutenant, you've carried a burden this country asked you to bear, and you did it with honor. I regret that it came to this. You deserve more than secrecy. You deserve recognition." Her lips parted slightly as if to speak, but she said nothing. The moment was too heavy, too sharp. Behind them, Rivers tried one last protest. "But, sir, her service record, it was sanitized, scrubbed." "Do you think classified programs leave their operators exposed in public files?" The president's eyes burned into him. "Commander Rivers, let me be clear, if I hear of you or anyone else questioning her honor again, your career will end before the ink dries on your next report." Rivers sank back into his seat, pale and silent. Harper gestured toward Elena's defense counsel, who looked like he might faint from shock. "Lieutenant, you'll be provided with a corrected record within the hour. You'll find it far more complete than what you've been shown here." He turned toward Colonel Brennan. "Seal this case. Every word, every file, every transcript. No further mention without my direct authorization." "Yes, Mr. President," Brennan said quickly, bowing his head. Harper looked back to Elena one last time, his voice quiet. "You are not alone anymore, Lieutenant. Not after today." With that, he closed the metal case, tucked it back into his coat, and turned for the door. The Secret Service moved in perfect precision, clearing his path. The gallery remained frozen, the air electric with disbelief. No one spoke. No one moved. As the president stepped out into the storm, lightning illuminated the chamber. And for the first time, Elena allowed herself the faintest of smiles. The war wasn't over, but the truth had finally drawn its first breath. The tribunal chamber was empty now, the gavel's final echo long gone, yet the silence still weighed heavy. Elena sat alone at the defense table, staring at the wood grain as if answers lay hidden in the lines. Her court-appointed lawyer stood awkwardly nearby, shuffling papers he no longer needed. "Lieutenant," he began softly, "I don't understand. A moment ago they were ready to strip you of everything and throw you in prison. Now the president himself—" He stopped, searching for words. "What are you?" Elena raised her eyes to him for the first time all day. Her voice was quiet but firm. "I'm a sailor who followed orders, that's all." "Orders? Orders to what? Pretend? Hide?" Before Elena could respond, the heavy doors opened again. Colonel Brennan re-entered, followed by two men in dark suits and a woman in Navy uniform whose ribbons alone could silence a room. Admiral Catherine Crawford, Director of Naval Special Programs. "Lieutenant Morris," Admiral Crawford said, her tone clipped but not unkind. "You'll come with us." Elena rose without hesitation. She didn't look surprised, almost as though she'd been waiting for this. They led her through a maze of corridors deep into the secure wing of the base, far from the tribunal chamber, until they reached a windowless conference room humming with electronic countermeasures. The kind of room where truth could be spoken without fear of it ever leaking. Crawford gestured for her to sit. On the table before her was a folder stamped UMBRA, COMPARTMENTED. Crawford opened it, revealing photographs. Dusty alleyways in Syria, satellite images of compounds, blurred shots of armed militants, and then a grainy, still frame of Elena herself, clad in nondescript local clothes, an M4 rifle slung low, her face half-shadowed but unmistakable. Her lawyer stared, jaw slack. That's you." Elena remained silent. Crawford slid another photo forward, a burning convoy. In the foreground, several civilians huddled behind an overturned truck, and there was Elena again, crouched low, hand raised, signaling them to move. "These were never meant to see daylight," Crawford said, her voice steady. "But after today, daylight is precisely where this has landed us." Brennan cleared his throat. "The President ordered all charges dismissed, Admiral. Case closed." "No," Crawford said, shaking her head. "Case complicated. The moment the President revealed her medal, this ceased being a stolen valor trial. It became something far bigger." Her lawyer finally found his voice. "Admiral, forgive me, but I need to understand. My client's service record shows supply duty, nothing else. Yet here you are showing me photographs of her leading civilians out of a firefight in Syria. What program was she part of? Why was it hidden?" The room went still. Crawford folded her hands. "Officially, Lieutenant Elena Morris served 4 years in logistics. Unremarkable. In truth, she was one of 14 women selected for a classified operational unit. Not SEALs, not Rangers, not Delta. Something different. We called it Project Andromeda." "Why classify them?" Brennan asked, his voice a mix of curiosity and unease. "Because the world wasn't ready," Crawford replied bluntly. "Officially, no woman had ever passed Bud S. Officially, no woman had ever deployed in Tier 1 special operations. To admit otherwise would have ignited a firestorm of politics, lawsuits, and media frenzy. So the program was buried. Their service records sanitized, their medals sealed." Her lawyer looked at Elena, struggling to process. "So when they accused you, when they mocked you in court, you couldn't defend yourself?" Elena's lips curved into the faintest trace of a smile, though her eyes stayed hard. "I was ordered never to." For the first time, he understood the depth of her silence. It hadn't been weakness. It had been discipline, obedience, strength. Crawford closed the folder. "Now the President himself has blown the cover. The truth is no longer containable." Brennan shifted uncomfortably. "So what happens now?" Crawford's eyes settled on Elena. "That depends on her. The country can no longer deny what she and others like her accomplished. The question is, will she accept the recognition she was once denied, knowing it will change everything?" The room fell into silence, the weight of the choice pressing down like a storm about to break. Elena exhaled slowly. For the first time since stepping into the tribunal, her voice carried more than calm. It carried resolve. "Recognition isn't for me," she said quietly. "It's for the ones who never came home. If their stories remain erased, then none of this means anything." Crawford's expression softened just slightly. "Then maybe it's time we let the world know." That night, the East Room of the White House was filled with reporters, service members, and dignitaries. Cameras broadcast live across the world. The President stepped to the podium, his expression grave. For too long, certain truths have remained hidden, not for lack of courage, but because of fear. Fear of politics, fear of tradition, fear of change. Today, that changes. He gestured, and Elena entered from the side. She wore a simple civilian jacket, not a uniform, but her posture carried a discipline no civilian could mistake. The room went utterly silent. "This," the President continued, "is Lieutenant Elena Morris. She and others like her served this nation in ways most of you will never know. They operated where official records said they couldn't. They fought in silence, saved lives in darkness, and carried burdens that history denied them." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Flashes erupted from cameras. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others leaned forward with awe. The President lifted a small case from the podium and opened it. Inside gleamed a freshly minted silver star. This medal was awarded to Lieutenant Morris for extraordinary heroism during a classified operation in Syria in 2018. Tonight, that award is no longer secret. Tonight, she receives the recognition she and her sisters in arms deserved years ago. He pinned the medal on her jacket. For the first time, Elena allowed herself a deep breath. The weight on her chest wasn't just metal, it was vindication. Applause broke out, hesitant at first, then thunderous. Reporters shouted questions. Veterans in the front row stood and saluted her. When the noise finally subsided, Elena stepped forward. Her voice was steady, carrying not just through the room, but through every broadcast. "I never asked for this," she began. "I never wanted to be in the spotlight. My team and I served because it was necessary, because people needed us, not because anyone promised recognition." She paused, her eyes sweeping the room. "For years I carried this medal in silence, hiding who I was, and in that silence, I nearly lost myself." Her gaze was unwavering. "This isn't about proving women belong in special operations. We proved that with every mission. This is about acknowledging the truth, so that no one else who served in silence is ever called a fraud again." She paused again, her voice dropping, but losing none of its power. "The real heroes are the ones who never came home. Tonight, remember their sacrifice. Say their names if you know them, and if you don't, know that they existed. They bled, they gave everything, and they deserve to be remembered." The room was silent again, not from disbelief this time, but from reverence. As Elena stepped back, the president placed a hand on her shoulder. "Welcome home, Lieutenant," he said softly. Words not meant for the cameras, but caught by every microphone. That night, headlines blazed across the nation. The secret soldiers, President confirms, classified female operators. From accused to honored. Lieutenant Morris's truth revealed. Silver Star in the spotlight, the medal they said was fake. Across the country, veterans who had doubted her now sat in silence, reconsidering everything. Families of women who had once just disappeared into obscure postings wept quietly, realizing at last why. And in a quiet apartment far from the cameras, Elena placed the new Silver Star beside the old one, tarnished and bright, past and present. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe something she had never dared before. Her story mattered, and that was the truth they tried to bury, until even the president himself could no longer ignore it. What do you think? Should these hidden heroes have their stories told openly, or should some secrets remain in the shadows? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video so more people can hear stories like Elena's. Because the truth, no matter how long it's buried, always finds a way to surface. Until next time, stay strong, stay true.